Greetings, Spook Group. This is Patrick Bishop, and today we are making a tutorial on how to use the EMF meter app that you can download from Google Play. It's published by Super Fun Labs. Let's go ahead and start that up. The icon is a little analog meter, the kind that our fathers and grandfathers used to measure voltages and amperages back in the day. Now when you start your app, probably for the first time, you'll hear this irritating beeping. On ghost hunts, we want to be as quiet as possible. So we're going to turn that off. I'll go to Menu, Disable Sound. Now, if you're just doing this privately, that's fine. But can you imagine being out with a bunch of other people ghost hunting someplace and everybody's, app is beeping like that? Okay? It works kind of like a metal detector. With a metal detector, the closer you get to the buried gold, the louder it beeps, the more often it beeps. That's the same kind of principle. Now, the reason that this app works at all is because every phone has got instruments installed called magnetometers, which just detect magnetic fields. And the reason you have those is so that even when you're not using GPS, the phone knows which way is north, because the Earth is a giant magnet. Okay, looking at the display, we see a couple of things I would like to draw your attention to. First, the numerical display, which gives us a continuous readout of the instantaneous magnetic field strength in the area. It's going to fluctuate all the time because of things that are happening deep inside the Earth, in the mantle and the core, as well as outside the planet, such as solar wind. All of these things will have an influence on these numbers. The fact that it's not a complete flat line, that it's not just one number, tells you that you're part of a dynamic system. The unit that we use is called the Gauss, and this app gives us the display in milligauss, mg from milligauss. The Gauss being one of the fairly standard units used to represent magnetic fields. Others are Teslas and lines per inch and things like that, but this one uses milligauss. Okay, we have a rashy-dashy green, yellow, and red display, which we can adjust to our preference by changing the sensitivity bar. I've never found much use for this. It's something of a distraction. What I'm interested in is the numerical display and the graphical display. Now, the graphical display. You'll notice that it's got columns and rows, like in a spreadsheet. Well, each column represents 1 second of data, and there are 10 columns. So the graphical display shows us the last 10 seconds worth of measurements recorded by the app from the magnetometers. We also have an X, Y, and Z, which measures the magnetic field horizontally for X, left and right. The Y variable is up and down, and the Z variable is forwards and backwards. And you can experiment by rotating this, and you'll see that the numbers on those X, Y, Z's change because you're changing the orientation of the device. Now, we're going to use this two different ways. One other thing I should tell you. The first time that you start the app, it may ask you to set the baseline to 0. Whether you do or not is a matter of personal preference. I do think that it is slightly more useful if you don't. When you reset the baseline to 0, what it's saying is that, for instance, right now, the magnetic field strength is about 640 milligauss. When you set it to 0, it says you're telling the computer inside that 640 milligauss equals 0. Let me demonstrate. Okay, there's set baseline right here. Sorry, it's not more in focus. It's an old phone. Okay, now it went from 640 to that. The disadvantage is that this changes the scale. If you're measuring really big fields, then big magnetic fields, then maybe it's not a bad idea. But for subtle fields, like the kind generated by ghosts, we may not want to do that, because it has to, it takes a pretty large change in the field strength to even show. Okay, to show the kind of dramatic things that we're looking for. So I'm going to set that back to what it was. Reset baseline. Okay, now you see the field is now true. It's showing what the actual field really is. Very little activity. Although the numbers are changing, the line is not changing very much. Now, we're going to use this app two different ways. The first way is that we will let it run like we have for a few minutes to sort of get a mental picture of what the local magnetic field naturally is. Okay? This is important because if you're someplace with lots of things going on, I mean, there's refrigerators coming on and off, compressors coming on and off, the heater going on and off, and it's going to create a lot of fluctuation. You want to know that is, and it's going to show here, and you want to know what the cause of those sorts of things are. So if you see a sudden spike, and you see it once, you might be tempted to say it's a ghost. When in fact it's just the space heater coming on. Okay, it will show those kinds of things. As a matter of fact, that's one of the things we need to be aware of. I'm making this video with an old phone, and watch what happens when I bring the phone close to the phone with the app running. Okay, you see how it's gone up to over 700 milligauss now. When I back away, it falls back down. Okay, the phone itself, the one that I'm using to make the video, is generating a magnetic field. And this is sensitive enough to pick that up and display it. Any kind of battery operated tech, especially, ghost hunters will have lots of different kinds of things running on batteries. Digital audio recorders, cameras, phones, that sort of thing, will all be generating magnetic fields when they're in use. And that can give you a false positive. Another thing to be wary about is walking around with this thing in your hand while it's running. It will also generate false positives from time to time. Say I'm walking, I'm walking, I'm walking, I'm walking. Oh my God, look, a ghost has been hammering away at my phone. I'm walking, I'm walking, I'm walking. Not a flat line there, okay? So it's tempting sometimes to mistake what is really a false positive for an actual event that is interesting to us. So try to keep it still. Set it down on a table, on the floor. If you're outside and the ground is dry, it's perfectly fine to set it down on the ground. Don't bring anything around it that is got a magnetic field, obviously, and you should be okay. So that's the first way we're going to use it, to set a baseline so that anything unusual, if the range goes up or down too much, we know that is probably not something natural. If we know that there's no space heaters coming on, the compressor in the air conditioning or the compressor in the fridge is not coming on, then we've probably got, and we do see an event on this meter, then we've probably got something, possibly paranormal. The second way we use this is to ask yes/no questions. If there is a spirit in the neighborhood who is willing and to interact with you this way, you can invite them to approach this tool, this instrument. Some of them are hundreds of years old, and they may not know what a camera is or what a phone is. So you say to a ghost, come up and touch this phone, every time that your answer is yes, and he may not have any clue what you're talking about. But if he speaks English, he probably knows what a tool of science is. So describe your instruments as instruments of science, tools of science, that sort of thing, and say, please touch this if your answer is yes. And so we can ask yes/no questions, touch it if it's yes, and leave it alone if it's no. And sometimes, if the spirits are willing, they will help us out. They will do so. So let me demonstrate. If there is anyone here who I cannot see, I would like to draw your attention to the tool of science that is on the table in front of me. I would like to ask you some questions. My name is Patrick, and I would like for you to think of me as a friend. I mean you no harm. The tool of science is not going to harm you. But when I ask your questions, when I ask my questions, if your answer is yes, I would invite you to please touch this tool of science. And if you do, it may demonstrate to me that you have done so. Jason, are you here? Are there any spirits nearby? Is there a spirit nearby who is not Jason? In life, were you male? In life, were you female? There goes the fridge over there. Nothing's happening. Are you a spirit that has identified yourself to me before? Yes, I live in a haunted house, and I know I live in a haunted house. I've got at least 3 ghosts in the house. Are you Chelsea? Are you angry about anything? Are you sad about anything? Is there anything you want me to do for you? Do you want me to pray for you? Do you want me to bring you something? Do you want me to play you a song on my piano? Do you want me to sing you a song? Well, are you in pain? Are you are you experiencing regret? Are you lonely? That's a common story. I should probably start the digital audio recorder up and see if I can get something other than yes, no answers out of Chelsea. If I start my digital audio recorder, are you going to be able to answer me? Okay. All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think you understand how it works. See if there's anything else I wanted to tell you. Okay, you've seen on Ghost Hunters and other shows where they use a K2 meter. A K2 meter is an expensive piece of equipment. This app works just as well, and it is absolutely free. It's free. So go to Google Play or wherever, find the EMF meter app from Super Fun Labs, download it, install it, and go forth and explore.